So unfortunately, the hits just keep on coming for the EcoDiesel engine. We talked a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, about how they have announced that they're going to discontinue that engine. Well, now there's word of a recall on the ones that are already out there for the fuel injection system. So it's really unfortunate, that Bosch CP4 fuel injection pump, that thing has been used on, once upon a time, Chevy used it on the Duramax and the heavy duty trucks. They had a lot of trouble with it and they went to a Denso branded fuel injection pump. Ram tried the CP4 on the Cummins for a couple of years, had a lot of trouble with it, so they've gone back to something else. Ford is still using the CP4 on the Power Stroke, and they've had a lot of trouble with it, but for some reason they keep using it. And unfortunately, the EcoDiesel engine in the Jeeps and the Rams also uses it, and they've had a lot of trouble with it. So we knew this was coming, and it's finally here. They've issued a recall on that fuel injection pump. Now the Jeeps with the EcoDiesels, I mean, that's kind of like the first Jeep Wrangler that we've ever seen with a diesel engine in this country. So I think a lot of people who have those diesels, maybe this is your first diesel. Maybe you just don't really know a lot about how a diesel works, but you bought it because of the promise of fuel economy and power and torque. So very briefly, for those of you who are kind of rookies at this, the problem with those fuel injection systems is that on a modern diesel engine, they are pressurizing the fuel to over 30,000 PSI, okay? That's why it's called a high pressure fuel pump. Okay, they're really pressurizing that diesel fuel before it gets to the injectors. And so with that much extreme pressure in the system, you can imagine that the fuel has to be pure, it has to be clean. You cannot have any contaminant whatsoever in these modern diesels, or you will have big problems. And the other thing about it is the wonderful EPA in our country, they ruin everything they touch, and they also ruined diesel fuel because they mandated such a low level of sulfur that it takes the lubricity out of the fuel. So our diesel fuel here in America doesn't have much natural lubrication in it like it used to, which is a big problem. And also these CP4 high pressure pumps can't tolerate any contaminant at all. So long story short, those pumps tend to eat themselves alive due to a lack of lubrication in the fuel. And then once they start to eat themselves alive, those little metal shavings go ahead and ruin the rest of the system. So it basically implodes, and it's very, very, very expensive to repair if you're out of warranty. I've seen guys pay $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 to get the fuel system replaced on their diesel truck because they have to take the tank out, drain it, clean it all out, and then start from there and go all the way to the injectors, lines, pump, injectors, the whole 9 yards. So it's very expensive, it's very problematic. The problem right now with the Jeeps and the Rams is that you also just can't get parts. So some of these people who have had this failure have had their trucks out of commission for 3, 4, 5 months. Just a major problem, and they have finally decided to recall officially the EcoDiesel engines in a lot of, not necessarily all of, but a lot of these new trucks and Jeeps. So you're probably going to get a piece of mail, I'd say in a couple of months. They're talking about early December, sending out letters. So if you've got a Jeep Wrangler, Jeep Gladiator, Ram 1500 that has the new Gen 3 EcoDiesel, if yours is subject to the recall, you're going to get a letter here in a couple of months. From what I hear, they don't really have a fix yet, imagine that, but they are actively working on it, and they say that next spring, so spring of 23, is when they're going to officially start to do the repairs on these, which seems like a long time to wait. So in the meantime, if you have an EcoDiesel Jeep or a Ram 1500 like this, what can you do to make sure that yours doesn't implode? Well, one thing you can try is to run a good fuel additive, because like I just said, the diesel fuel in this country naturally doesn't have much lubricity in it anymore, like it used to back in the 90s and 2000s. So if you add an additive to your diesel fuel every time you fill up, you can put that lubricity back in there. In my experience, the Hot Shots brand is really good. So if you find Hot Shots brand, they have a product called EDT, Everyday Treatment. That's really good stuff. But you know, there are lots of brands out there if you want to try something different. But yeah, doing an additive in your fuel to add lubricity back in there can help. And just keep an eye on things. Make sure your diesel fuel is clean. You're getting it from a reputable vendor, retailer. You know, don't get diesel fuel from a sketchy place. Just watch what you're putting in your truck, and hopefully you'll be okay until next year when they get a fix going. But yeah, if you hadn't heard about that, it's true. The new EcoDiesels are starting to see these recalls show up also. Very unfortunate. You know, why did they start using the CP4 in the first place? Well, from what I hear, that pump is cheaper to manufacture. You know, it costs them a lot of money to build them, and to, you know, for Ram, for Jeep, to purchase them, to use in vehicles. If they can save a little bit of money per unit, multiplied over thousands and thousands, that's a big savings. So the CP4 was just cheaper to produce, and that's how, unfortunately, a lot of things go in the world that we live in. So anyway, if you've got one of these, I'm curious, if you've got a Jeep Wrangler, Gladiator, or even a Ram 1500 that has an EcoDiesel, if you've had a fuel system failure, I'd like for you to post a comment below and let us know if you ever got it resolved, if it was difficult to deal with your dealership. I've heard some instances where particularly Ford has been really difficult to deal with. You know, a lot of people have had fuel system issues, and Ford tries to blame it on them for using bad fuel or whatever the case might be, trying to find a loophole to get out of a $10,000 warranty repair. I hope that Ram and Jeep don't start doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, just post a comment below and let us know what your experience has been. I'm really interested to hear about it. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about that anymore because I have a Hemi V8. So nice and simple. I still love the EcoDiesel engine. I still have a lot of respect for what it offers. I think it's really well suited to the Jeep Gladiator and the Wrangler for that matter, but especially the Gladiator. I think that engine in that Jeep was just a perfect combination, and it really made that vehicle drive the way that it should have. You know, and plus you get the fuel economy. So I still love that engine, but at the same time, I don't miss the complexity of it, the expense of it. You're not going to save money with it. We've gone over that before. And honestly, I'm just really loving the Hemi because I don't have to worry about any of this diesel stuff that's going on out there now. The high fuel prices, all the recalls and failures and expensive parts, can't get oil filters, you know, all the stuff that's going on in the diesel world right now. I'm skipping out on all that. So I love my Hemi. But anyway, yeah, let us know if you've had some issues with the EcoDiesel. As always, guys, thanks for watching. We'll be back later.